Hello, everyone. My name is Danita Dodson. For those of you who don't know me, I am a poet from the hills of East Tennessee, and I welcome you to the trail. Those of you who do know me, this is an appropriate place for me to be. It's my office. And I come to you today to share with you some great news, an announcement that does my heart good, that my first book of poetry, Trail in the Azimuth, is soon to be published with the Resource Publications imprint of Wipf and Stock Publishers. And you will be hearing more through the press about the release date. But prior to that, I just wanted to touch base with you to let you know a little bit about the poet. For those who know me and those who don't know me, it's still an introduction to something new. But I have gravitated toward poetry since I first read Robert Frost, the Pastor, as a first grader. My great literature teacher, I call her literature, was my first grade literature teacher, who put in my hand my very first novel, which I can't remember what that was, but I was reading very young. She realized that there was something in me that loved poetry, and loved particularly nature poetry. So I was introduced to Robert Frost as a 6-year-old. My father, also who had read literature, particularly Shakespeare and his sonnets in college, was, before I could reading those sonnets aloud to me, and I was hooked. I became a teacher of literature, and I've read great literature and taught great literature for a long time. But somewhere along the way in that strange, ugly year of 2020, I had time to revisit some of my writings since my childhood, forward to just the last couple of months. And in them, I found some renewed inspiration to where I had reaffirmed and re-embraced what I now feel is a God-given talent, the call to be a poet. And I had written as a child, I reread these words just about a year ago, that somewhere deep in my heart, and even naive age, that someday I would like to be a published poet. I read that again as from a teacher's perspective, to say, wow, what a lovely, beautiful child. She has a dream. I want to be able to encourage that dream. And so, since I've done that with all my students, and some of them have become published poets, have been teachers of literature, I felt that I owed it to myself to return to that child anew and embrace her as though she were one of my students and say, you go, chica, it's time, your time is now. So I started refurbishing, writing anew poems from some deep place. And after I had everything typed up, about 80 pages worth of poetry, I started laying it down across the floor, and there seemed to be a rhythm and a theme that was palpitating through the words, the form, that had a lot to do about trails. Of course, I'm a hiker, so there are literal trails that I have taken in the woodlands of my Tennessee, but also as a citizen of the world, someone who has lived and traveled in places like Nicaragua, Jamaica, Guatemala, Turkey, at the Southwest U.S., I felt like I had traveled many paths. And that I've come to understand one thing in all those. And from the voice of a mountain woman, and also from the voice of someone who has cultural awareness of the kindred beauty that exists in all people, I found a thread of connections between the words of the poems. And it is that somewhere along the path of life, and I wax poetic, that all of us are wayfarers toward moving towards some grand plan, some direction, losing our way sometimes, finding ourselves off the beaten path, taking the road not taken, as Frost says, but somehow ending up where we need to be and stepping into some sort of light. And that's what we aspire to, right? Particularly during the times of the pandemic, where we want to find our way out of places of hardship and sorrow and into embracing something larger that shows our connection with our internal being, that most intimate self, but also a connection with each other, wherever we are in the world, whatever language we speak, and to the great Creator above. And I was wowed by a word that my nephew, who is in the Army, home on a visit in December, had used the term azimuth, because he was doing navigational procedures, trying to chart his way using a compass, trying to find the scouted direction to where he needed to be in the woods. And I thought, oh yes, that's very symbolic of what we aspire to do when we do want to find our way, and our way on to something more beautiful and something that is more connected with beauty and each other, and some sense of this, a larger self. So as I was contemplating this, some poems started reconnecting, and some themes from some old poems started shining anew through that lens, and suddenly the book started falling into place. There are 5 sections. The first section is called Tennessee Trails, and you're going to find me talking about the diverse Appalachian experience, literal places, but also places of the heart in my own backyard. And the second section is called Outbound Treks, talking about places I've visited in this lovely United States of ours, particularly the Southwest, where I've had the opportunity to participate in archaeological projects. And I found when I was working in Colorado one summer that the message from the ancient Pueblo was that we should leave stones of memory behind. And so symbolically, I started thinking, what are we as humans? What is humanity leaving behind? And may it be something beautiful, and the aspiration to leave something with this collection. The third section is called Global Paths, and I actually, as much in the voice of a travelogue, take you to places I've lived and worked. I had the blessing to teach in Nicaragua and live there for a year, but there are other places that often people don't know about. And as I walk the path, I want to share a little bit about those beautiful places. The fourth section is called Wayfarer's Psalms. As a spiritual person, I think you'll find all the poems have a spiritual vibe, a spiritual connection, but this is particularly where I have found myself talking to God in the form of verse, in the form of music, and knowing that somewhere in the great outdoors there is something larger that's listening to me as I walk along the trail. And the last section is called Pandemic Pathways. And some of these poems actually came, all of them really came during the period where I was at home and was contemplating, as we all were, our role and our place in life, and with each other, and not even being promised tomorrow, because having lost loved ones in the community where I live to COVID, I started thinking more about what are my days? How are they going to be used best? If they're numbered, let them be spoken in beauty, and may I walk many beautiful trails with the remaining days I have. And I think that that's something that all of us should pause and contemplate, is this thing called life. It's what we have. We're here to make it as lovely as we can in our daily sharings with each other. And it doesn't have to be a volume of poetry. It could be something as simple as a hello and a smile and a handshake. And I hope that I've done a little bit of all of those communications with this book of poetry. I'm excited to share it with you. This is a long video. Thank you for hanging with me. And you'll be hearing more from me. Feel free to share this with others. And I will keep you updated about releases, about book signings, and my blog. Peace be the journey. Love ya.